And Nikita is going to join us as well. Great. Come on up, Nikita. I bet you know how this works. And you have to hold it pretty close to your chin.
Okay.
Great. Come on in and sit down. Wow, it's so great to see so many of you here this morning. Yes. And as you can tell, we have a special guest with us this morning who I introduced at the time of announcement and welcome, Nikita Edwards. And some of you, how many of you were here at the talent show just a couple of weeks ago? A fair number of you were actually in the talent show a few weeks ago. And we had a wonderful night. And that's when I met Nikita, because she came to play these things that are behind us. Anybody know what they are? Theo, we know already that you know what they are. Steel drums. And they're also called?
Steel pans.
Steel pans, right. And so, Nikita, you grew up not in Canada. You have immigrated here from somewhere else. Can you tell us about where you're from?
So I'm from the Caribbean, and I'm also from an island called St. Lucia in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And these instruments have originated from the Caribbean.
Yeah, so
tell us about them.
Sure. The instruments are from the island of Trinidad and Tobago, and they're actually made out of steel drums. So the drums that hold oil, we would have created the steel pans out of that material.
And how do they do that?
So they would cut the drum and then use a hammer to actually get the notes on the steel pans.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have all types of steel pans. So we have tenor steel pans, bass steel pans, guitar steel pans, and these ones are called second steel pans.
Second. And are they different sizes?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So would these be the largest ones?
These are the middle ones. The bass ones are the largest ones, and they're very long and tall and big. You have to roll them. You can't carry them. Yeah.
And so I asked Nikita when I was talking to her on the phone whether in churches, in places in the Caribbean, where would these pans be played sometimes in church, just like we would play the piano or our percussion instruments here? And her answer was?
Sometimes.
Sometimes on?
At special events, so like for Christmas, for Easter, we will play carols. But steel pan really centers around carnival time and calypso music. So we have large competitions at carnival time called Panorama, where different steel pan bands compete against each other.
And that time of the year is now in the Caribbean.
Yes.
And it's also, did you know that what we called Shrove Tuesday, when I said that you could come for pancakes on Tuesday night, which I hope you will, that marks the beginning of the season of Lent. And in other parts of the world, that's celebrated as Carnival. Yes. And it's a huge celebration, isn't it?
It's a big celebration, so people will be on the streets dancing and partying and having a good time.
And eating.
And drinking.
So it's a great big party and celebration. And we're going to have a celebration here on Tuesday night. So I hope that you'll come to that. But to celebrate, she said, special occasions, right? So this is a very special occasion to have you here, Nikita.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're so glad that you came. Is there anything you want to tell us before you play for us?
Not really. It's just that, again, the pan is really centered around calypso and soca music. So I'm going to play a little excerpt from a calypso song for you guys. Yes, you have a question.
Ooh, good question.
That's a very good question. It can take maybe about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, to make a drum. But these drums cost about, let's say, 1,000 Canadian or so. They're pretty expensive.
Wow. Yeah. And I bet it's noisy when you're making one.
It is noisy, and
Hammers,
it's noisy, yes.
metal? Yeah.
And when you play as well, it can be noisy as well if you don't have nice neighbors.
And that's what you have in your hand. These are called levers.
These are called steel pan sticks.
Sticks. Just like Ugo has some sticks in his hand that he's playing with too.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
Any other questions?
Is it going to be loud?
It can be.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, play away. We can't wait to hear this. Oh, did you have a question, Lachlan?
Why do you have instruments?
Why do I have instruments? Because I love music.
Do you love music, Lachlan? Then this is going to be a huge treat. Okay, let's listen.
Good.
I'm going to sit so I can watch Nikita play too, because part of the experience is watching. Oh, and we should move that microphone, Bob, if you would, closer to the drums. Is it good there? Okay. Sorry. That's for the service. The one's on. Okay. And that's later in the service. Oh, right now? Oh.
We're getting our signal straight. Well, we'll try. Once for us. It's a song called It's Well With My Soul. Some of you may know that good old gospel song. Then the words are going to go up on the screen, I hope. They went someplace. And you'll sing along, and there'll be two verses that we'll join in with the singing on. So we're excited.
school days.
Somebody as short as me was here last. 6 days later, Jesus took Peter and the brothers James and John with him. They went up on a very high mountain where they could be alone. There, in front of the disciples, Jesus was completely changed. His face was shining like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. All at once, Moses and Elijah were there talking with Jesus. So Peter said to him, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While Peter was still speaking, the shadow of a bright cloud passed over them. From the cloud, a voice said, "This is my own dear son, and I am pleased with him. Listen to what he says." When the disciples heard the voice, they were so afraid that they fell flat on the ground. But Jesus came over and touched them. He said, "Get up and don't be afraid." When they opened their eyes, they saw only Jesus. On their way down from the mountain, Jesus warned his disciples not to tell anyone what they had seen until after the Son of Man had been raised from death. Hear what the Spirit is saying through these ancient words of Scripture.
Will you join me in a moment of prayer? Holy One, surround us with that same sense of your presence. Fill us with your word, your love, your life. Amen. Every time I come to this passage in any one of the four Gospels, I'm reminded of a couple of thousand times when I've been at a concert or a recital or in some other place, and the music is just glorious. And my whole soul is just encased in waiting and listening for the next notes, for seeing where it's going. And two or three people behind me start to having a conversation. Matthew recounts this amazing moment of transfiguration. And Peter, so caught up in the moment, starts to babble. "Oh, it's good to be here. Oh, look, let's do something. We can't just stop. If he doesn't do something, he thinks he's going to explode." Now, he starts off pretty well. He says, "Lord, it's good for us to be here." And you can put all kinds of emphasis in that sentence. And if he'd stopped there, that would have been fine. Because it is good for us to be in the presence of something that is so overwhelming, so out beyond us, that it seems to take over our whole lives, pulling all our senses into focusing on one single bright, shining moment. And we know deep down inside ourselves that it is indeed good to be here. In those symphony concerts, I wish I had the gumption of the cloud. One of the commentators this week translated God's words, or the words from the cloud, as something like this: "Would you just shut up and listen to him?" Listen to him. Really listen to Jesus. You see, that's the whole point of this moment. This time out of time, when everything else seems to stop, when we can't quite move anywhere. We just are. Francis calls it a thin place, a thin moment, a time when we're close to the holy, a time to listen. I am convinced that every single person in front of me at some time or another has had at least one of those moments. When something caught you. Maybe it was sunrise over a lake. Maybe it was like Jesus and Peter on the top of a mountain. Maybe it was being caught in an embrace or transformed by a piece of music, or just aware as the wind blows past the side of your home that there's something more. I don't know what it would be. But in those moments, we are invited to be still and listen and know the majesty, the wonder of holiness. We're invited to be riveted, awed, flabbergasted, lost in wonder, love, and praise, as one of the old songs says. these moments of holy inbreaking are very important, because it's a reminder that our God is not a God out there beyond our ability to connect with, but instead is a God who is present and transfigures this ordinary life. Ordinary revelations like that sound of music. They're here. They're everywhere. And the whole world, we're reminded, is held in God's hands as a gift offered to us. Transfiguration is an invitation to return to our ordinary lives, our communities, with renewed attention and patience, awaiting the holy in what's often the routine. To attend to the present and wonder at the ordinary, to let our life astonish us with the moments of sacredness. It is good for us to be here, right here where we are. For every moment of our lives is holy ground. Transfiguration Sunday and the texts from Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John comes at that turning point in the cycle of Jesus' life. A few verses earlier, Jesus says, "Who do you say that I am?" And the voice from the cloud says, "This is my beloved." And they go from that cloud to Jerusalem, to Palm Sunday, Good Friday, aware of the holy in the midst of their lives. It's as if the story tells us we need these moments of transfiguration in order that we too might be lifted up and held and embraced, so that whatever comes, we know God is with us. We're about to encounter several crossroads in this congregation and the life of this community. This Saturday, there are going to be a whole bunch of us gathering at Christ Evangelical Lutheran Church. Get you to the right place, Bob. Gathering to talk about our future as churches in this community. And next Sunday, we gather to talk about our future as a congregation itself. And both of these moments will have points of high wonder and deep struggle. Because our life is like that. We need to remember the moments of transfiguration that touch us. The presence of the holy in our ordinary lives. I'm pleased that this lesson fell exactly on this Sunday. The lectionary surprises me. The disciples on their way with Jesus to Jerusalem, First United's people on their way to who knows where. This moment, this Sunday, gives us a glimpse of the Holy One and invites us to find courage for the days ahead. I was going to stop right there, and then I read something last night. I want to read it to you. He was talking about this passage, and the author says, here's something the disciples and the church they founded is not good at. We are unable to really listen to Jesus. Could it be that our 5-year plans, our mission strategies, and the files of Googled responses deafens us to what Christ would be really saying to the church? He goes on, am I being too provocative when I suggest that maybe the church has been building booths for 20 centuries. Too long. The record of that moment of transfiguration seems to suggest that Jesus' desire will most often be contrary to our best laid plans of mice and men. The disciples want to build booths. Jesus says, get up, stop being afraid, let's go. So I stole those words and I added them to the end of my sermon, so that not only will we have that moment of high, holy transfiguration, but also the warm, intimate touch of the Christ who reaches out to each one of us and says, don't be afraid. Come on, let's go. Life awaits. May it be so. Amen.